Just a stone's throw from northern Morocco and nestled on the southern tip of Spain lies a small but incredibly strategic piece of land that's actually owned by the United Kingdom. This is Gibraltar, a place known for its massive limestone rock, a population packed into just 6 square kilometers, and a lot of political tension. But how did the UK end up owning land on the Iberian Peninsula? Why does Spain want it back? And what's life really like in this unusual overseas territory? Let's dive into the strange and fascinating world of Gibraltar. History of Gibraltar. To understand why Gibraltar is British, we need to rewind the clock to the early 1700s. During the War of the Spanish Succession, British and Dutch forces seized Gibraltar in 1704. 9 years later, the Treaty of Utrecht formally handed it over to Britain. Spain was forced to cede the territory in perpetuity. And that's how this tiny patch of land, smack in southern Spain, became British and stayed that way. But Spain never fully accepted it. Over the centuries, it's attempted negotiations, blockades, and even sieges to get Gibraltar back. None worked. Fast forward to modern times, and the people of Gibraltar have made it crystal clear. They want to remain British. In fact, in a 2002 referendum, over 98% of voters rejected the idea of joint British-Spanish sovereignty. And during Brexit, a whopping 96% voted to remain in the EU but still under the UK umbrella. So yeah, this isn't just a political tug-of-war between nations. It's about identity for the 30,000 people who live there. Gibraltar location. So why is Gibraltar such a big deal? Well, take a look at a map. Gibraltar sits right next to the Strait of Gibraltar, a narrow waterway just 14 kilometers wide that connects the Mediterranean Sea to the Atlantic Ocean. It's one of the busiest maritime choke points in the world. Every year, thousands of ships pass through carrying oil, goods, and military vessels. If you control Gibraltar, you have a front row seat to watch and, in theory, control maritime traffic in and out of the Mediterranean. That's why Britain's held onto it for over 300 years, and why Spain still wants it back. The Rock of Gibraltar. Now let's talk about the main attraction, the Rock of Gibraltar. This colossal limestone formation towers 426 meters above sea level, higher than the Eiffel Tower, and completely dominates the skyline. It's not just a pretty face. The rock is honeycombed with over 50 kilometers of tunnels, built by British forces during times of war. Known as the Great Siege Tunnels, these underground corridors were carved out during the late 1700s to defend against Spanish forces. Today, they're a major tourist attraction. And if you're wondering, yes, you can go inside. Monkeys in the Gibraltar. Did you know there's a place in Europe where monkeys roam completely free? Welcome to Gibraltar, a tiny British territory at the southern tip of Spain, famous not just for its giant limestone rock, but for its surprising inhabitants. Meet the Barbary macaques, the only wild monkeys living in Europe. Around 300 of these furry rebels live on the steep cliffs of the Rock of Gibraltar, and they're not shy. In fact, they've become local legends. There's even a popular belief, as long as the monkeys stay on the rock, Gibraltar will remain British. So yes, these monkeys might just be the most politically important primates in the world. They're clever, bold, and more than a little mischievous. Tourists quickly learn to guard their snacks, sunglasses, and even their phones because these macaques aren't afraid to snatch whatever catches their eye. Locals? They've got a complicated relationship with them. The monkeys are protected by law, but that doesn't stop them from getting into homes, jumping on cars, or causing lunchtime chaos. But love them or hate them, the Barbary macaques are now part of Gibraltar's identity. So next time you visit, don't just look at the view. Watch your bags and maybe give a respectful nod to the real rulers of the rock. Life in Gibraltar. So what's everyday life like in one of the most curious corners of Europe? Welcome to Gibraltar, where British tradition meets Mediterranean vibes. Here you'll find red phone boxes, afternoon tea, and the Queen's English, all under the blazing Andalusian sun. It's like a little slice of Britain, just with better weather and tapas around the corner. English is the official language, but don't be surprised if you hear Spanish too. In fact, most locals switch between both without blinking. And then there's Llanito, the local dialect. It's a wild mix of English, Spanish, Maltese, Portuguese, and Italian, sometimes in the same sentence. It's like hearing 5 languages fighting to be understood, and somehow it works. Now, here's the wild part. Gibraltar is one of the most densely populated places on Earth, more crowded than even Hong Kong. Over 5,000 people per square kilometer live here, squeezed between the towering rock and the sea. Yet, despite being just 6.8 square kilometers in size, Gibraltar runs like a mini-nation. It's got its own government, police, legal system, and even its own university. And here's a twist. Unlike the UK, they drive on the right side of the road. Why? Because flipping to the left just before the Spanish border would cause traffic mayhem, and frankly, no one wants that. Life in Gibraltar is a blend of cultures, chaos, and charm, and for the people who live there, that's exactly what makes it home. Economy and currency. When it comes to money, Gibraltar does things a little differently. They use the Gibraltar pound. It looks like the British pound. It's worth the same as the British pound, but good luck spending it in Britain. It's strictly local currency, accepted on the Rock, but nowhere else. Now, Gibraltar's economy isn't built on factories or farmland. Instead, it runs on services, and four industries really keep the engines humming. Tourism is a big one. Thousands of people visit each year to see the famous Rock, meet the monkeys, and soak in that Mediterranean-British fusion. Next is financial services. Gibraltar has positioned itself as a friendly place for banks, insurance firms, and asset managers, thanks to light regulation and low taxes. Then there's maritime trade. Sitting at the crossroads of the Atlantic and the Mediterranean, Gibraltar is a hotspot for shipping. It's like a pit stop for cargo vessels, cruise ships, and tankers, fueling up and moving on. But here's the twist. One of Gibraltar's biggest industries is online gambling. Yup, sports betting, online casinos, poker sites, many of them are based in Gibraltar. Why? Because it's a tax haven for digital gaming. There's no VAT, no capital gains tax, and corporate tax is very low. In fact, it's estimated that online gambling accounts for over 20% of Gibraltar's entire economy. And it shows. The GDP per capita here is among the highest in Europe, often outpacing the UK itself, though the exact figures bounce around a bit year by year. So whether it's tourists, traders, or digital dice rollers, money flows in surprising ways through this tiny territory. Climate and lifestyle. The weather in Gibraltar is what you'd expect from the Mediterranean: hot, dry summers and mild winters. The highest recorded temperature? 40.6 degrees Celsius, that's over 105 degrees Fahrenheit, warmer than any temperature ever recorded in the UK. Beaches, palm trees, outdoor cafes, it's a mix of British bureaucracy and Spanish holiday vibes. But not everything is sunshine and sangria. Gibraltar's life expectancy, especially for men, is noticeably lower than other Mediterranean regions. One likely reason? High smoking rates. Nearly 30% of adults smoke regularly, among the highest rates in Europe. The city and population. Gibraltar doesn't have an official capital city, but most of its urban area is concentrated along the west side, facing the Bay of Gibraltar. This is where you'll find government buildings, shopping districts, homes, and even an airport where the main runway cuts across a road. Cars literally have to stop when planes land. Population? Around 33,000 people. If it were an independent country, it would be among the least populated nations in the world, smaller than San Marino. Why the UK won't let go. So, why does Britain still hold on to Gibraltar? In a word, strategy. The location gives the UK a military and economic foothold at the entrance to the Mediterranean. British naval ships dock here. Intelligence agencies monitor traffic here. And geopolitically, it offers enormous leverage. Plus, the people of Gibraltar don't want to leave. In every referendum, they voted overwhelmingly to remain British. Spain continues to protest, especially since Brexit, but the UK isn't budging. And neither are the Gibraltarians. So there you have it, the Rock of Gibraltar, a 6-square-kilometer chunk of land with 300 monkeys, 30,000 people, and over 300 years of political drama. It's British, it's Mediterranean, it's one of the densest places on Earth, and it's not going anywhere. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the world's most fascinating territories, drop a like and let us know your favorite fact in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more geography, history, and global curiosities, just like this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.